All right. Hi, Chris. Thank you for giving the time to record this. Um, we're
Happy to.
gonna have a conversation about how car dealers can and should use videos to get the maximum results with minimum investment. We're also gonna try to have this conversation on the level that, I coming from a dealership without technical knowledge can understand and give them useful information. So to start with, I come from dealership environment, from sales. I did internet sales, finance, management. Can you give a little bit of background of where you come from?
A very similar background to you. I started in sales a little over 20 years ago with Toyota. Did a little bit of everything, internet sales, finance, desk, GSM, and eventually went over to the vendor side. I worked for Cox and as well as web providers or developers, running PPC ads, social campaigns, and developing SEO platforms.
Cool. So yeah, this is useful because you have experience on the provider side, which is, I think it's important for our conversation. So uh, diving right into it, we touched briefly on what we want for dealers to be able to use video for to be more impactful and effective for search engine optimization. But just back in a little bit, what are the best tips, most important things on the basic level 101 that dealers should know about SEO for dealership?
To keep it simple, the biggest signals uh, that I would focus on for dealer SEO is going to be the basics. Your Google business profile, right? You need to dial that in. Make sure you're adding owner added images every 3 or 4 months, responding to reviews, adding your events and offers every, at least twice a week. Making sure you have your SFTP feed set up so people can see your cars for sale. And that's going to be kind of the basics of your GMB. You want to maintain it, be active on there. Google's always going to favor the most active GMB profiles, which are going to be the ones that respond to reviews, post offers and updates, and add images. Images is a big thing. So GMB profiles that constantly get new images from the owner get favored. On the website, one of the biggest things I see, all the dealers want to rank for, Tacoma near me or Tundra for sale. Those are going to be the two most common search terms or low funnel search terms. Dealers want to rank for those pages. But the problem is, we want the websites to be fast. And while people are on the web page, they want to see a Tacoma and a Tundra, and we want to render those units for them quickly. The problem is, though, is that that technology is great. Most dealer websites don't actually have what's called a static page, which is going to be your URL /Tacoma or Camry or Tundra. What they have is they have these query parameters, most websites, and it's a little question mark, and it'll say equals Tacoma, and then another question mark with some syntax, and then it'll say, trim equals TRG. So those pages don't actually exist. So, one of the biggest things dealers should probably do is reach out to their website providers and make sure they have a static model page or a static VLP model page for every model they have in stock, and this is going to be kind of the basis. So that way, when somebody does a search for Tacoma near me, Camry near me, you actually can show up. Once you're showing up in these searches or able to show up in these searches, then you should definitely consider optimizing with video and images.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's perfect. So going back to Google, just one thing to add that Google is not 100% of the market. It's
No.
90% whatever, right? But what I like to recommend is to pay attention to Apple Business Connect, ABC. So they show up on Mac and iPhones. And just funny anecdote, randomly somehow I opened whatever Microsoft browser is, called this name,
Edge.
and I typed Edge. Yeah, so I typed in a search. Apparently, Bing has their own versions of business profiles. So I don't know if it's gonna, pay off to pay attention to that, but it does exist. And another thing that I think you mentioned when we spoke before about meta titles and meta descriptions for those pages.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's actually the problem when you don't have a static model page. There's not, the meta title and description is just about a Toyota dealership, not a specific model, which is, one of the biggest factors, having your meta titles and your meta descriptions that are precise about what the page content is. So if you have a Tacoma VLP page, you want your meta title and descriptions to talk about the new and used Tacomas that you guys have in stock. When you use query parameters or they don't have static pages, those meta titles and descriptions are never there. So Google doesn't know technically what this page is even about. They just know it's about Toyotas. So it'll never
Okay,
consider serving that page when somebody does a Tacoma near me or Tundra for sale near me or Tundras for sale. Yes.
perfect. Okay, so then the subject. Now we dealt with basics a little bit. How does original video will help SEO?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, you know, uh, when somebody does a query on google.com or Microsoft or whatever, wherever, the search engine's job is to deliver the best page based on that query. So Google has crawlers, all of the search engines, they have crawlers, and they basically grab, record all of the data that's on there, and they kind of compare them to each other just so they have kind of a reference for which is the best page, who has the unique information. And it's also proximity based, so Google's going to favor the dealerships that have locations closer to you. Google knows this because you should have a properly built out business profile, which is kind of a requirement if you want to really rank in those local searches. Um, sorry, where were we, Mico? I completely lost my.
So no, that's fine. So the video, like with those
Yeah,
crawlers that will see the original videos.
yeah. So Google has some of the best image technology out there. They know that this video, especially if a dealer's going out creating their own content with their own salespeople on their lot, Google knows that this video is unique to every other VLP that's on the market. So, and again, Google's trying to provide the best experience based on that search query. So they're always going to favor the websites that have real unique images, that have real unique video content on that VLP that's about the model. The ones that have the links for the credit apps, the trade appraisals, basically the best resource for that type of search. Google's going to show those pages first. So having video is a very unique way to differentiate in the market and show the search engines that you are the best result for the customer. So, unique images, unique video certainly sets you above everybody else, and you don't want to, imagine that everybody else's SEO is bad. You kind of want to pretend that everybody else's SEO is good. And what can you do to kind of one up them or, stand out, differentiate? So, and video is a very unique way to do that.
Okay, so side thought, if would it does it make a difference if I host my videos on YouTube, knowing that Google owns YouTube?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and it kind of goes into SEO backlinking, and it's a very talked about subject. Everybody wants backlinks, and there's even companies out there that will, if you pay them $600, they'll go get you 5 or 6 backlinks. You want to have backlinks from the biggest site providers, right? So a backlink is just a link on their web page that's to a web page on your site. So for YouTube, you would post your video there ideally, and then in the description, you'd have a link to, if the video was about a Tacoma walk around, you'd have links to your Tacoma VLP so people can go explore your inventory.
Okay,
If you're
perfect. Yeah,
making,
so yeah, so sorry. So yeah, we'll touch on the backlinks on the specific plan. One thing I wanted to touch on, like you already mentioned that, and it's kind of like metaphysical, right? Because we talked about it should be original content, like
yes,
original content that we
unique
recording
content.
right now, right?
hmm hmm
So how important that is that it's original?
You want it to be as unique. Google understands, when Google's deciding which pages to serve based on that search query, they have access to all the VLPs. They know that 90% of them all have the same exact stock photos. And Google, again, is trying to serve the pages that deliver the best experience. And Google knows stock photo, well, all these websites or web pages have the exact same information. This one is unique. It has the stock photos, it has unique photos, it has unique video, and Google's able to verify this, and it's going to favor the websites that have the best and most unique content.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. When I did videos, when I do videos, I always think that, first of all, I think as consumer facing that I, as a consumer, would rather watch a real person explain to me in normal terms rather than watching a commercial. But this is a next level, right? When this content makes an impact on the SEO, not just with the consumer, but also with SEO, which serves us in all kinds of
Oh
ways.
yeah, yeah. The person that's the customer that's reading the web page, they get kind of that one-on-one connection through the video. They get to see the person that they're actually going to be working with. And the same, and like you said, the Google, the search engines, the crawlers, they know these pages have additional content that is extremely unique, so they're going
Mhm.
to favor the additional content, the best resource.
Okay, perfect. So the next thing is, um, let's say if I'm a car dealer, you're a car dealer, GM, dealer principal, you get bombarded with offers and pitches from marketing companies, agencies, providers that claim and promise you everything, right? They're going to do video, they're going to do all of that. Can they actually do what we're talking about?
I mean, technically, yes, they'll execute on all of that, but they're checking a box. It's going to be, basic video. It's probably going to be, snips and cuts from, whatever was provided by Toyota. It's very hard to kind of it's very it is good content, but it's the content customers have seen everywhere on every other site. If the dealers, the idea behind good video isn't necessarily to make you rank for SEO purposes. The idea is to have engaging content that the person will want to engage with. So the highest, and that's kind of the whole idea behind SEO. It's not about checking boxes. It is about creating good quality content that people want to engage with. And Google knows if you're creating good content. Google knows that they did a search, they went to this web page, and 3 seconds later they were back out into the search again, searching that's a similar query a different way. Google knows that page was not a good page to provide that customer with. So Google's constantly learning, and it really is. It's about creating quality content that people actually want to watch. And unfortunately, I do see a lot of SEO companies. They dealers sign up for it. They are promised a lot of things, and the SEO companies do execute on it, but it's not the quality content. It's not something people want to engage with. And the biggest thing on SEO again is going to be your Google business profile, your homepage, your VOP and your VDP pages. Most of these SEO companies, they'll do that first work. They'll dial in your GMB or your Google business profile. They'll dial in maybe your meta titles and descriptions. But what you're really paying for is for them to produce two or three poorly written chat GDP pages about buying a Tacoma with towing capacities, how much gas it holds, miles per gallon. Those pages don't rank. People don't want to read them, but most of the time when you're buying an SEO package, it comes with pages, and the only real thing you're getting every month is two or three poorly written pages that never rank in a search engine. So, better SEO companies are probably going to focus on, those weekly updates for your events on your GMB profile, and that's where the most of the work is going to be, being very active in your Google business profile, which, depending on how involved the dealer wants to be in their own marketing, a dealer could easily handle most of their SEO.
Okay.
It's not necessary to hire a company to manage your SEO.
Okay. So what it sounds like that, yes, it could be helpful, but they're really, you cannot buy your way to the top of the Google page, and you
No.
have to put some work to be different from others
Y-
because
y-
everybody can pay $1,000 a week or whatever, right?
Yeah, 100%. These companies are not going to be able to create that unique content that people want to engage with and gives them that like, and that's what people are on the website for. They're ready to connect with the dealer. So these high production, tier one level, Toyota level quality videos are probably not going to, they look great, but people are going to engage more with more of a one-on-one, even if there's a few mistakes in the video. TikTok has taken off simply because people want that kind of one-on-one, a regular person making a regular video. I think maybe the high production quality videos have maybe kind of worn off a little bit. Um, and when you look at the data, YouTube Shorts is up, 600%. TikTok usage is, always at an all-time high. Instagram videos, and I mean, that's what people are just doing. They spend their time looking at video and content. So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
definitely want to align with that.
Yeah, and it makes total sense. I have my own personal anecdote that I like to tell dealers, and this is a 100% true story. When I sold BMWs, I did a lot of videos and I tried all kinds of different things. And one day we got a new 7 Series, first 7 Series with self parking. And it, kind of, I'm dating it right now because it was probably 10 years ago. So this is not new. And all I did is I grabbed somebody to hold the phone for me, and they recorded me getting into the car and trying it without any preparation or practice and on the tight parking lot of the dealership in San Francisco. It worked. I did not edit the video. I just slapped it on YouTube and sent it out there. And it got views. It got couple hundred thousand of views. And then I got a call from BMW in Germany, which scared me because I thought I did something wrong and I'm in trouble. They schedule a call with me. And when we got on the phone, their question was, how did you manage that? Because they said, we spend 100 grand, hiring engineers and a production company. We put together a video that shows how self-parking works, and nobody's watching it. It got like a couple thousand views, and this is on the BMW main page. And nobody, just a sales guy in San Francisco, was able to get really significant exposure with that.
But it
So,
was high quality content. It was high quality content people could engage in from a regular person working. Like that's who people want to do business with.
yeah,
It makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah. So let's get down to the actionable plan for a dealer that's not going to be too overwhelming. And we went through a few things just to break it down and make it as simple as possible. So one thing, as we discussed, create content that's organic. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be
No,
edited, right? Maybe it's even better when it's not edited and it's not a commercial. But what you brought up is that it's also really important that have that content consistently.
it's the most, that's probably the most important thing. Content, nobody wants to see old content, so, content has to kind of be maybe the culture of the store. The store can determine the level, how much content they want to create every week, but content kind of has to be the culture, and if you want to get active with creating content, you want to create it once, post it everywhere, cope is the strategy. Um, so you want to have 2 or 3 videos created a week. You want to post these out, possibly boost them, get them in front of people's faces. But once that content's, used up, it's done in a week or two. Constantly need new content to keep people engaged, grab new audiences, reach people that you weren't normally reaching, and show up in those searches that you weren't necessarily showing up, up in for. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of dealers, they'll make an effort and they'll create 4, 5, 6 videos, maybe post them on their site, but then there's no continuation of that video creation process. Those videos get stale. Once somebody's seen it, they're not going to watch it again. So, if the dealer really wants to kind of take things to that next level, go above and beyond, creating content, and this content can be used everywhere in your emails, in just your regular follow up. Maybe you're doing a campaign to re-engage people. You have Meta, TikTok, Facebook. There's a million places you can post this great content to try to grab that traffic organically.
Right. Well, yeah, it totally makes sense. but also, again, from my experience, what I've seen, sometimes the video that I put together, again, 10 years ago, suddenly starts blowing up and suddenly starts getting traction. And you you're not gonna know which video will get traction, right? You just have to like they say, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And
Yeah, that's exactly it's exactly some videos, get a ton of views, people really engage, you'll get lots of likes. And then some videos, it's like people just want to scroll past. You shouldn't let it discourage you. But use it as feedback. What did I do differently in this video? And every dealer is going to be different, and again, their level of commitment, can always, there may
every
be
market
dealers
is
that
different.
yeah, every market, there may be dealers that, have the capability to create 20 videos a week. And if they can, that's great, but that doesn't mean that they need to. I feel most dealers, if they created 3 or 4 quality videos a week, started posting it, they would get great results after 90 days. They would have that organic following. They would get into markets and reach people that they weren't normally reaching with high quality content that these people would normally not see.
Yeah, and another thing that from my experience I saw that, yeah, it's good if you have time to put together new content, but on the other hand, if a new Prius came out last year, I can create that Prius video and I can use it until the Prius gets redesigned, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be that much different. Okay, so here's the biggest choke point at the dealer that we all see: how to actually find people that are willing to get on camera and how to have them do that thing consistently. So we played with a few ideas, and what me and you thought as just like easy points just to start with. First of all, incentivize them, right? It's not going to cost you a lot to spiff a salesperson $50 per video, right? If it's a good video.
I mean, I agree. I feel like that's reasonable, or or maybe flip it. Instead of spiffing the salesperson, that $50 or that $100 for creating the content, tell him we'll boost this on our Facebook page. Just make sure, at the end of the video, ask for Mico or ask for Chris. Like
Right.
I feel like that's kind of a holistic way, like, that you just kind of brought up. It's a holistic way. This creates the urgency for the salespeople, because the salespeople to create good content and continually create it, because that's going to a social media platform, and that dealer is going to boost it with $50 or $100, and that's going to get a ton more of impressions. So it's great for the business, it's great for the dealer, and it's super great for the salespeople, because that video he made is going to get 10,000 impressions, and a few of them may actually buy from him.
Yeah, so that's we tried, and I keep on trying, still keep on trying to convince salespeople that video is good for them personally, but that doesn't stick. But what you're saying is, and it makes sense that if I'm a sales manager and I tell you, okay, Chris, record a video. If you record a video, I promise I'll spend $100 on boosting your video to basically make a commercial for you. And then once they see the results and other salespeople see the results, hopefully that's going to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, I mean, no salesperson wants to miss out on anything. So yeah, if you just get one or two to do it, boost the post, and they get some results, and they'll probably get results fairly quickly. You know,
Yeah.
you'll probably get the rest of the salespeople, wanting to get involved. And you see that, and personalities develop. There are salespeople all over the country that have amazing YouTube, Facebook, Insta channels where they create their own unique content, and they kind of create their own, they're their own marketing people. They generate their own traffic, and it can't happen like that, as long as you're creating quality videos consistently.
Okay. So let's say I'm the dealer. I finally got some salespeople to record these videos. So what do I do with them? That video, we talked about my personal preference, and it sounds like it's correct, is to host it on YouTube. To start with that, right?
Mhm.
Have the backlink in the description on the YouTube video should be optimized for search engine, right? Mention the model, mention the name. There's a you can put a lot in the
Oh
description,
yeah.
but
Oh
what,
yeah. The
right?
dealership, every hours, directions, the
Yeah,
salesperson. Yeah, lots of good stuff.
but important part would be the backlinks, right? Backlink is basically the link back to the website, hopefully to that static page for that model, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit more advanced, if a dealer is advanced enough, they'll be able to track it in GA4 and actually see what's working from that,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
And then from just that YouTube video, other than that, I you know I believe, like we said, throw everything on the wall and see what sticks. So use this spray and pray um, approach. Same video should go any social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, definitely TikTok and Instagram. Um, you mentioned Google Business Profile. That video should go on Google Business Profile on the social post, right? Because
Yeah.
Google Business
Yeah.
Profile is also social media.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, there's a place you can upload photos, or there's a place you can upload photos and videos. Most dealers just upload a photo, but you can upload videos,
Right.
and you definitely should, put the whatever market you want to be in, just start creating the content, put it out there, most dealers don't do it because they want that instant gratification. I want to spend this much on ads and I get traffic today. This is a slightly different method, but you're getting in markets you would not normally be in. You're showing people content they would not normally see. So it is a unique way to grab those customers that everybody else cannot reach.
Yeah.
And doing it with unique content is the best way because it gives you time to tell your story,
Hmm.
on why they should buy from you instead of, a Tundra driving or Tacoma driving through the desert at 80 miles an hour. They're great videos, but once people are already in the market, they're already interested in those, give them an actual human they can connect with, and have that human, show them the walk around of the video or the unit, the Tacoma, the car.
All right. So we had the video, we made the video, so we posted them everywhere. We have not posted them on our own website. So another point is that on your own website, if you have those static pages, those videos should go on static pages, correct?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if you have good unit, if you have a salesperson doing a walk around on, say, a TRD Pro Tacoma, I would post that video on every TRD Tacoma. And I mean, you can reach out to your web provider and just here's the video link to YouTube. I want this underneath the image stack on my BDP, and they'll every time you get a new Tacoma TRD Pro, that video will show up. I would 100% do that. Having that salesperson doing that walk around of the car, while the person's on your VOP, they'll spend more time on your website, more engaged with your content. And that's the name of the game. The more times they see your logo, hear your name, spend on your website, reading your emails, your text messages, listening to your voicemails, that's ultimately who the customer is going to choose, So it is about getting in front of their face, but you want to do it in a way where they're actually liking, the content you're putting in front of their face.
Yeah, and another, it's a little bit different sort of content, but this is something that's extremely popular on YouTube and everywhere, just car buying advice, right? Or car maintenance advice. So dealer websites do have like a research page. That's
Hmm.
usually fairly useless, right? It'll be just something provided by the manufacturer, and it's just some random information. If instead you had a research page that'll have a bunch of videos that are agnostic, right?
You'll you'll
And
rank.
yeah, you'll rank, and also people stay on your website rather than go on
Yeah.
YouTube and listening to bad advice about how fight this dealership.
100. I would like that's a fantastic idea. If the dealer got their service writers or their techs, how do you check the oil? How do you check your air pressure? When is it time to bring in, when do you need a rotation? When do these most common questions that most people don't know? You could create a whole video series just having your technicians do that, and there's a ton of searches. Somebody's going to be questioning, what oil filter do I need for my 2022 Camry? They're going to do that search. They'll end up on a video with your technician talking about oil changes for Camry. And then, before you know it, they're, ordering the parts from you. They're ordering the service from you. Or, you know what, this is too much work. I'm just going to pay the 79 bucks and let the text do the oil change for me. Those content ideas are fantastic and great because it is unique. It is what people are searching for. And like you just said, most of the pages on service and research, they are boring. They're not super informational, even though they're information pages. Having unique video content of technicians is super engaging for customers. And it's
Awesome.
it's unique.
Yeah. So lastly, so actionable plan, we created some content, we put it on social media everywhere, maybe get traffic back. We put it on our website, also try to put it in different places and have different type of content. The last thing, and you already mentioned that, is that video is something that will be great to share with your customers, with your internet customers that contact the dealership. So first of all, and that's from my experience, right? If customers inquiring about Prius, and I did record a Prius video last year, and I have whatever random question about a price or something about the Prius, I'm going to answer that question, and I say, by the way, here's a video walk around I recorded for that video, and just put the YouTube link. I don't need to attach the video, just put the YouTube
No.
link,
Mhm.
and that's going to help my YouTube channel. That's going to help my SEO. Yes.
It's gonna help. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'll help your YouTube channel. 100. The more views you get, it's great. But from the customer's perspective, it's a huge differentiator. Most dealers do not send video to customers. So you going out of the way, it's a great way to engage the customer in a way nobody else is. I mean, we have access to all the mystery shops. Almost no dealers include video in their FQR. So, you would be the only dealer, hey, I'm Mico over at ABC Toyota. We have your price quote here. Here's the question, here's the answers to your questions. By the way, here's a unique video, getting that person, keeping that person reading your email for that extra 60 seconds, and then maybe clicking a link back to the website, that is the name of the game, giving them differentiating in a unique way that keeps them coming back to your website.
Yeah.
That
And
is,
then
that's like a triple value.
right. So, and then moving from that, another uh, issue that a lot of dealers struggle with, especially we work with Toyota dealers, right? So, customer inquired about a Sienna. Sienna is not available. There are no discounts, super expensive, right? And then the common wisdom is, well, we should follow up with a customer. So, how do they follow up? Hey, you still interested in that Sienna? Or they send them a marketing email that's 4.9 APR, something random that does not help with anything. What if instead of that, I send the customer, hey, we just got a shipment of Tacomas. Here's the video of what we got. It might not be super related to what they asked about, but this is content.
I love that whole thing. And when you look at it, right, the Sienna example, it's a great example because there are a lot of Sienna leads, but there are no Siennas, at least in my region. You know, salespeople should not follow up a week later and ask them if they're still interested. They should send them video of stuff they have in stock customers can buy today. We can go into the lost sales and look at all the Siennas, what they're actually buying. They're not buying Siennas, they're buying Tundras and Tacomas and RAV4s, and they're buying all of these cars that aren't a Sienna. So I like 100%, nobody's, if a customer sends in an inquiry on a Sienna, well, nobody's got it. If you're sending, I have these Tacomas in stock, I have these Tundras and you're giving them alternatives to choose. A lot of people will choose one, and we see that in the, customer inquired on a Sienna and they drove 50 miles to go buy a Tacoma somewhere else. And it
Yeah,
just, and all that happened was that customer met a salesperson that sent them a video on a Tacoma on a
yeah,
Tacoma. It wasn't anything magical. That salesperson just did his job, provided content, and the customer engaged. And that's the thing. If you give them something to engage with, you can kind of get that conversation going and then start solving problems. Okay, do you really need three rows of seats, or will two work? Is it, whatever the situation is, will you consider pre-owned? You can at least get to a place where you can have that conversation with the customer. But like on the Sienna leads, most salespeople don't follow them up. They'll send a random email a week later asking if they're still interested. But really, the better salespeople would be kind of like you. Let me show you here's the video of the Tacomas I just got in. Here's a video of a Tundra I just. And that's a great way to get people engaged, especially in a market where, nobody has Siennas, but the customer needs to buy something.
Yeah, and it also like straddles this line, which is weird with social media and YouTube. It's infotainment, right? It's information, but it's also entertainment. People gonna watch something. They're gonna scroll Instagram. They're gonna scroll YouTube. They're gonna scroll whatever they scroll. I scroll LinkedIn for no good reason for like 15 minutes a day, and it's all same stuff, right? So if I see something that exposes me, right, it entertains me, it does add value, right?
100%. I mean, again, all dealerships advertising is impression based, and the customer ultimately sends a lead in or converts on the logo they saw the most. And there's years of research showing this, and it's the exact same thing that you said. Maybe you don't have the Sienna, but if you're giving them content they can engage in, you're a lot closer to selling them a car than everybody else that just gave up because they didn't have a Sienna. So
Awesome.
and that's how people get switched. You send them a video on a Tacoma and they tell you they don't like the Tacoma, and then you start telling them about the Tacoma and all of a sudden they're buying a Tacoma.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, no.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. This was super helpful, and
Anytime,
we'll
Mico.
see you. We'll see you on the next. When do we meet? We meet on meetings.
Tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.